Alright guys, today we are going to do a car review on a 325i E36. Now I've already done a video review of an M3 E36, and this is actually the same owner. This is Jordan's, who runs Salt City Drift. This is another car he's built for drifting. So let's go through what modifications it has, we'll go drive it, and then we'll talk about the car. So first of all, let's go through the modifications. So this is a E36 325i. This has the M50 engine. I believe these make a low 200, a high 190 horsepower. They are an inline six. This is using the SL Pour angle kit, not SLR, SL Pour. So it's basically kind of a cheap replica knockoff of the SLR. But with that said, so it has that as an angle kit. It has a 3.91 final drive from an auto E36, and it also has intake, exhaust, and a tune. Hydro, bucket seats, some of the basic stuff. It's very, very basic built. Like I said, angle, hydro, shorter final drive, a little more power. And we're running Ironman tires on the back and Firestone Firehawks in the front. So let's go take it out for a drive and see how it feels. All right, E36. Well, there's Kevin's E46 I did a review on. All right, let's see, E36 game. Wow, that's snappy on initiation. That was really snappy. Okay guys, so there you have it. That's how the E36 did. I will admit, I've already driven an E36 M3 today. I've driven an FC3 SRX7. I've driven a few cars today, so I'm kind of been bouncing between platforms. So, but coming off and driving this car, first thing I noticed is, at least compared to the E46 M3, I was a little low on power, and I felt like with that 391, I was on the straightaway, I was just a little too close to limiter. So I was kind of bouncing off of it, and I had to kind of grab the e-brake to drag out the line, because I just knew third gear would be too tall and I wouldn't be able to keep up, and it'd just be a little useless to do that. So, but otherwise, for the tighter sections, power felt great. The car, you do have to feed the steering a little more than some of the other cars I've driven today, in like my Z. It doesn't self-steer as much. You kind of have to give it a little provocation to get it to self-steer. So with a little bit more of a proactive mindset approaching the driving and counter steering, that's just one thing to keep in mind during this car. It's a very minor detail, and once you get the muscle memory down, it's really easy to work with. But the same thing, the E36 and the E46s, if you guys have watched the E46 videos, I've talked about the forward bite. The E36 does it awesome as well. Not as good as the E46. The E46 is another step forward in that terms of forward bite, but E36s are freaking awesome when it comes to terms of forward bite. They're absolutely great. They have great grip and just awesome car. I love these cars. These are such good platforms. So in terms of steering feel and while drifting, it's just like the E46s. If you guys watch those videos, they're very easy to drive. I can stay in the slide one-handed and talk with the other and do gestures and all kinds of stuff. It's a really smooth car to drive. It's very smooth, very balanced, and just an awesome experience. I feel like I only have good things to say about these cars, but any of the negative values from this car specifically is maybe for like the bigger corners it needs more power. That's the only thing. This is the 325i motor. This isn't the M3 engine, so there is more power available. So ownership of this car, cost of ownership, cost to build, cost to operate, and parts, and etc. Let's talk about that. So in this post-COVID market, E36s are getting a little harder to find. They're starting to enter that vintage section of automobiles. They're becoming more collectible. They're collector cars. You guys have seen the Bring a Trailer post of these cars selling for $1 bajillion. And so that's driving up the value of all of these. So they're getting a little harder to find, and if you treat your chassis like a consumable item, this chassis might not be the one for you. Depending on the level of driving you want to pursue, if you want to be a pro car, do competition or lot tandems, or maybe your local track just sketchy and it's known for wrecking cars, this might not be the chassis because these chassis are getting harder to find. You might want an E46 platform instead. But for a more casual drifter, and if you're just really into the E36, you really can't go wrong. A car like this probably costs $7,000 to $10,000 to build in today's market, and probably pre-COVID crazy market, this is probably a $3,000 to $5,000 car to build. The angle kits are plentiful and relatively cheap and easy to install. The 3.9 final drive in these cars is a huge game changer in terms of power delivery, and you can go to a junkyard and get one out of an auto E36, and that'll cost you about $100. For reference, I did a final drive reduction in my 350Z, and that final drive gear alone is almost $1,000, let alone I have to install it in the differential. These cars, you go to a junkyard, auto E36, pull it out, weld it, throw it in, $100, you're done. So that is an awesome thing to consider. The angle kits are relatively cheap. I'll put the price right here for the SL Pour kit. Remember, SL Pour, but even the stock cars have a lot of angle. I actually owned a stock 328IS and drifted it, and it was a very impressive platform. One thing to consider with this car, a little lower power than anything else I've driven in the last few videos, but this car with the Ironman tires in the rear, one thing it's done, Jordan tells me these exact tires that I just drove on have about 200 laps on them. Insane. Now keep in mind, one thing with this is when Jordan accumulated all these laps, these were through ride-alongs, through Fuel Fest and other car shows, so, and just normal driving as well, he would put water on these tires. So car would get hot, tires would get hot, cool them off, etc. So you have these rapid heat cycle changes. So that might be part of the variability of why the tires have lasted so long. They've been cooled down fast, and the rapid heat cycles might be hardening the tire a little bit so they don't wear as fast. Nonetheless, car felt great, plenty of grip, and I love the car. It's just, I love every car I've driven, so pick that with a grain of salt. But if we're being absolutely objective, the pros to this car is it's a lot cheaper to build still than an E46 M3 that I like a lot, but it doesn't have the power that the E46 M3 has. So it's lacking a little bit in that department. And depending on how far you want to go, if you want to turbocharge it, LS swap it, whatever you want to do, there are a lot of avenues for this car. But considering a lower budget vehicle, this or an E46 platform is the way to go. And considering the availability of these chassis, if that's a factor for you, this might be a harder car to replace or find locally, where an E46, they're everywhere still. They haven't become collector, they haven't become vintage. So anyway guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this car review. I hope anyone looking for a drift car heavily considers this. I do really suggest it, even considering the vintage factor, right? I think this is, it's kind of weird calling this car vintage because in my mind it feels like it's a 10-year-old car, but really these are starting to get close to the 30-year mark for the really earlier E36s. So with that said, it's a good platform. I think if you end up owning one, you can't go wrong though. I will say that you cannot go wrong, right? Consider what you need. If you want a little more power, if you drive a local course that's bigger corners and stuff, you might want something with a little more power, but you always get 328i, you can get the M3 engine, and that should fill that gap. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you liked it. Please leave a comment down below if you have any questions or if I missed anything about this car, and I'll see you guys in the next video.